All right, well, it seems like we got another blog post, even though I posted a video yesterday, but this is even better because there is so much news that is added into this blog post. Also, before I get into this, if you want to read in more detail about some of the things that are in this blog post, because some of them I will be skipping over just for the sake of this video, the link will be in the description down below. Please feel free to go and read it if you want. First, starting off with Deathmatch. So Gary mentions on how he's planning out the sandbox mode as he just started thinking about the things that he needs to get done right, including player movement, inventory, health, and weapons. This does prove the theory that I mentioned long ago that when it comes to Deathmatch, most likely it will be used as a form of foundation in terms of making the sandbox game mode, which is very, very exciting news. Now, moving on to Standalone. We finally have some great news about Standalone. So Gary mentions here that the meaning of what Standalone is and also provides some great new information in regards to asking Valve for their permission. In short, they've updated their license agreement and are in the final stages, which is great. But Gary is hopeful that this will happen within this month. Gary also states that he'll be talking with his lawyers at FacePunch to make their license as well, which will give you the permission to do whatever you want as long as you don't blame Gary or FacePunch for it. Moving on to exporting improvements. Now, exporting improvements to Standalone have been made, and majority of these improvements are to provide a template for the branding of your games, and other improvements are also providing size optimizations and wizard improvements for setting up and exporting your game on Sandbox. So we got some more news in detail about the monetization about Sandbox, which is something I know I talked about yesterday, but I know also a lot of you guys are very interested about seeing how this will go, and we're just going to get right into this. So Gary mentions here that one of his biggest regrets with Gary's mod was not being able to give the opportunity to creators to monetize their games and creations. He's learned this lesson this time around and also learned a lesson from Valve, which is that for FacePunch and Gary to succeed, the community has to succeed as well. While they've been playing this for a while, they did try asking Valve for help in terms of paying out creators with the system, but then they noticed that it'd be too restrictive. So they're looking at other ways to pay developers and creators for their games and creations on Sandbox, which is really awesome news. This is the first time they're actually mentioning this in the blog post, but they're going to be using an automated algorithm-based system where you receive money based on the amount of players who are playing your game. This is kind of akin to games like Fortnite with island creators, which pays out depending on the number of players that visit or play on your island. Most of the money that will pay out developers and creators will be through the skin/game purchases in Sandbox. Now, Gary also heavily states that the games won't be pay to play. Again, they will not be pay to play. He also states that he wants to take stuff slow and steady when it comes to utilizing monetization in Sandbox. So if FacePunch and Gary want to find a way to fund development for the future and also pay developers, it's part of a system that will allow everyone to win, and that's what they really want to focus on. So staying on topic with the idea of how you could possibly be getting paid from utilizing and creating things on Sandbox, and FacePunch has been working on allowing developers to add their own clothing to the Sandbox store. Similarly, how they wanted to do this within Rust is something that they're going to be utilizing with Sandbox, as you'll be able to publish your clothing items on the back end, and alongside it, you can publish your clothing to the Steam Workshop so that they could pay you if the clothing items are added to the store. There's also a preview of some of the new clothing items that were created by the community, which look really awesome. That shark head is something I definitely would like to buy because that's just really awesome. I love that. But there's also been a mention from Dan talking about the clothing documentation, and this is something where it's a new page has been added specifically for anyone who wants to learn about how to make clothing in either Sandbox for their games or utilize it in a way where you can obviously end up putting your clothing on the Steam Workshop, as we mentioned earlier on. So this is very awesome, and I know I've talked about this pretty much like the last two videos. So again, if you want to learn more about it, definitely either check those videos, or if you want to read in detail, again, check in the description for more information. That leads us into networking. Now, networking was another aspect that has gotten a bunch of huge updates. And to summarize networking, because of course, a lot of this is very technical, they've been testing Deathmatch while running it on a dedicated server to improve things. This includes making a dedicated server network for showing FPS and bandwidth stats to clients. making it easier to see the stats in their console. Majority of these changes have added ways for you to change the map and have clients automatically reconnect to the server, and also have the server update the game in the same process. They've also added a user permission system which allows dedicated server owners to modify permissions of individual Steam accounts in a file. They did mention that they'll be limiting certain actions such as kicking or banning to only users with those permissions. The next couple sections in the networking area are pretty much, again, tech oriented, so if you want to read more info, again, check the description. Now, there is a ton more that is here, which of course goes into more detail about certain aspects. Again, a lot. This is a lot of things that you can end up seeing right here, but either way, there has been an update with Movie Maker, which is improving the timeline tool. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I had to scroll through a whole bunch of stuff, but yes, there has been a bunch of improvements in terms of using the timeline tool for choreographing cutscenes and eventually exporting videos. It was mentioned that while these basic features are being worked on, when they are complete, they will be added into the Sandbox engine. So to end it all off, Gary states that it feels like they're getting somewhere with Sandbox. There's still a lot of work to do, but it feels like they're making awesome progress. There's still a lot of unknowns in the future of Sandbox, but every month is starting to get clear with how they're pushing things forward. Gary also states that it's too early for him to fully think about release dates, but it's no longer unimaginable. Now, to kind of have my own closing thoughts up real quick, I do want to say this blog post has been absolutely chocked with a bunch of new sort of features, specifically with the Sandbox editor and also some updates that we are looking forward to, like VR, standalone stuff, the sandbox mode. There's just a lot of things that are in here. And while majority of these things are more developer focused, it's really awesome because Facepunch and Gary have been really trying to focus on just adding all these different features to allow creators and developers to create and make the games that they want to with the sandbox editor. This game has come so far in terms of all of this stuff. And I know so many of you guys that normally watch me, if you're not developers, have been kind of pretty much like in this sort of loop where it's like, when is this game actually going to come out? When is this update going to come out? Like a whole bunch of stuff. And I get it, but we're getting there. We're getting there. And hopefully within 2025, we will actually see this game, but this is absolutely wonderful. Mostly very big news in terms of, again, probably the biggest update with Standalone, which again is one of the biggest features of Sandbox, is being able to export your games. And super awesome to see with this update. There's not really much more I can honestly say, except for I'm excited to see more about these updates and monetization and more details that are going about it and get you all up to date. Either way, if you really enjoyed this video, you'll definitely enjoy the last video that I made, which is right here. And thank you guys so much again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.